Nurse Ogawa has been late 3 times this week. Beverly Crusher's grandmother used to make vegetable soup with peas and carrots. And a man can't be held responsible for what his mind does when he's asleep. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Huskin. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 7, Episode 8, entitled Attached. Written by Nick Sagan, directed by Jonathan Frakes. I bet we'll be mentioning his name today. This was November 6th, 1993. Where were you? And how you doing today, Sirach?
I'm doing great. Awesome.
All right. I somehow deleted the title of that episode. Thank goodness it was just one word, so I memorized it. Yeah, attached.
Yeah.
Okay. And everybody, please join us in giving a very special thanks to our friend Jonathan Capps. Jonathan Capps for sponsoring this episode and the entire season of The Next Generation for us. Also, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications if you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review, and visit us at patreon.com/the7th rule to support the show and hang out with all of us. Sirach, you've never seen this episode before, have you?
No.
Was there one tiny bit of it in any way that sounded familiar to you?
Yeah, a scoring that sounded like Deep Space Nine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, when was that?
It was the point when he was about to climb up the thing, and he sensed fear inside of Dr. Crusher, and he's like, "Sense fear," and she was scared of heights, and in that moment, the exact scoring of DS9, I was like, "Dude, either we stole theirs or they stole ours, but for sure somewhere this sounds familiar. This sounds like a DS9 score." So I don't know. Obviously, they're before us, so we must have stolen some of their scoring from this, because it did sound almost identical to a DS9 scoring.
Wow, that's so interesting, because there was something very familiar in that scene for me too, and I don't know if I made that connection, but I felt like I just felt like, oh, this feels familiar. This maybe it's a set that we've seen, but then I started kind of racking my brain, like I don't remember really looking up at that thing, but they've done a lot of cave things. I wonder if it was the music that triggered that for me. That's so funny. Interesting.
I'm pretty sure it was the music, because for one, the fire caves, we've seen the fire caves before, so that was also a familiar thing, just caves in general, the same caves that we've been using. But that music was definitely Deep Space Nine scoring. So whatever that little segment of music was, it was the exact tone that we use on all our DS9 transition scenes and kind of like day-to-day DS9 stuff. So that's what sounded super familiar to me.
Okay. What I was alluding to was, think back to a Star Trek convention in Chicago last year. Gates McFadden does a special event called Coffee and Croissants with Gates McFadden. And that was my idea, because specifically of this episode, because I would always hear it ringing in my ear, coffee and croissant. I've been doing these elaborate breakfasts and all you want is coffee and croissant. And that kind of stuck with me, even though I haven't seen this episode in whatever it's been, 20 years or 25 years. Certain things just stick with you forever. And that was one of them. So I do actually remember this episode pretty well. But before I get into that, Sirach, how do you like it? What do you think of it?
Oh, I liked it. I liked this episode. I thought it was interesting. At first I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to like it, because it did have it looked like one of those diplomacy episodes where there's a planet where half the side of the planet doesn't like the other half. And I was like, oh, this is a typical diplomacy episode where, half doesn't like the other half.
Right.
But what I liked about the twist on this particular one was that it was really truly about the long, unspoken feelings between Dr. Crusher and Patrick. I mean, Picard, and how we've been watching their relationship evolve and grow, and the unspoken stuff, and the innuendos, and the looks that they give each other, and it feels like a relationship that has been handicapped by some unspoken tension, and finally we kind of get to address that in this episode. So I'm glad to have this episode.
Right. So I remember this episode pretty well. I'd forgotten about the Kess and the Prit thing for the most part. I mean, when I saw it, I remembered it. But when I look back at this episode, I think of Coffee and Croissant. I think of them getting nauseous when they pull apart. I think of, these scenes outside. I think of the Griffith Park, with them coming out of the Bat Cave, because I believe that's the Bat Cave where they're shooting, and all that kind of stuff. And the breakfast scenes and all those kinds of things. But what I realized today was just how terrific that final scene was. I was blown away. I was like, wow, this scene is actually really good. Star Trek is not known for its tender romance scenes or anything like that. There's not a lot in there. And when they try, it's kind of like, Star Trek is kind of like the Geordie when it comes to romance. But I thought that this scene was so well earned because we've been watching for 6.5 years, waiting for something to happen. Yeah. And we get that explanation. I thought the writing was great. I thought the directing, the way it was presented was phenomenal. Before I found out it was Jonathan Frakes 15 minutes ago, I was like, oh, obviously I should have guessed that. And I thought the acting was terrific at the end there.
Yeah.
And the rest of the episode was also good. But I feel like that ending makes me look back at this episode now and be like, wow, what a terrific episode, just because it really closed on a beautiful note, I thought.
Yeah, well, I kind of disagree with you.
All right, finally.
Yeah, I didn't like the note that it closed on, actually, because I felt like we just regressed right back to where we started from in the beginning of the episode.
When she said, friends.
Yeah. And I'm thinking like, so what kind of real evolution have we done in this relationship? You have now been able to read my mind and I read your mind. You know that I love you. She said the words love. So it's not like I have a crush on you. I think
and they were getting a little flirty. She's like, oh, Jean-Luc, you can't. And he's like, well, when I'm asleep, you can't blame me. And she's like, what about when you're awake? He's like, oh, no, you've caught me.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what like, this is going towards them finally being adults and saying, you know what? Let's just act on these feelings we have for each other. I didn't, she clearly has feelings for him. He clearly has feelings for her. They, through this great storyline of telepathy, have now been able to essentially mind meld with each other and understand each other's thoughts, which is interesting because there's a whole nother side question. I'm like, if Troy can do this whole time, like, wouldn't she be thinking like, it'd be a lot easier to be a therapist when she says, oh, I see, Captain, you're holding on to your resentment because you have feelings for Dr. Crusher, but you feel guilty. Like like something like that could have been talked about. But anyway,
it's true.
Yeah. But anyways, since they decided to play it out very well in like a science fiction sort of way, where they're getting their frequency waves kind of, tapped into by these electronic devices. So the element of science fiction is there on why they would be able to kind of read each other's thoughts. I thought it played well too, the way the build up to it. And he was like, excuse me? And she's like, I didn't say anything. And it just kept building up. So at first you're like, what's going on? Is he tripping? Is there something wrong with the captain?
Right.
So the build up was good. And I like the idea of them getting to really know each other, like how they feel about each other. Like this is I could have had this episode in year 2 or 3,
Hmm.
and it would have helped move along their relationship 5 years ago or
But see,
5 seasons ago.
this whole syndication thing made it to where they always have to go back to one, basically. So
Yeah,
if you watch this episode, you see this big, beautiful arc, but that arc needs to end and come right back to the point A, basically. And when I said I loved the note that it ended on, I guess I meant I loved that scene. But I'm with you that at the end, I found myself rooting for them to finally get together. And
yeah.
I didn't, and I thought, oh, that's cute, mature to be like, well, I guess we'll just stay friends. But I'm like, also, that's kind of a cop out, man. Like, you had this great episode, this big, beautiful scene. You've had 6.5 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, but I think it is just because of syndication. They had to just kind of be like, now when people watch the next episodes, they'll have that underlying subtext of we know they actually love each other. But if somebody didn't watch that episode, they didn't miss anything. They won't be like, wait, why are they together? What happened? You know?
Okay, so then leave it open ended and don't tell me anything. Like, let's see them lean in for a kiss. Camera pulls back. The doors close, and we don't know really technically exactly what happens for exact. You know, or they have a glass of wine and they're tasting, and then they both take a sip, and he says, "Well, why don't you join me for a glass of wine?" And then why don't we just start with a glass of wine, right? And then camera pulls back. They're laughing, having a glass of wine, and we don't know if it just
Yeah, the
ends like
camera won't have to get it, all of it from start to finish, just the start.
yeah, just start. And it leaves in our imagination either it could be a friends.
Yeah.
It could be friends. It could have ended on a friend's note, possibly, if if he put his foot in his mouth while he was having that glass while he was having that glass of wine, and maybe he just put his foot in his mouth and said something stupid. But other outside of that, it could have ended essentially up to us to kind of think about, like, ooh, I wonder what happened that night. Did they really hit it off, or
That's true. They could have left it open ended to where if you miss the episode, nothing really has changed. But if you've seen the episode, then you go, well, they could be humping, they could
yeah,
be humping and they're just keeping it professional and everything's fine. And then the writers would have that option 10 episodes later to revisit that and be like, well, counselor, since Beverly and I have been humping for the last 15 weeks, oh, I somehow knew that. Yes, yes. By the way, I feel like
yes,
this
yes,
episode,
yes, yes.
specifically the reason they chose Crusher for this mission was just so that they could become attached. Because
Yeah.
if you're doing a diplomatic mission, the obvious answer to come with Picard is actually Troy, not the
Yeah.
doctor. The last person he would take would be the doctor. Why is he taking the doctor on a diplomatic mission to find out if these people? It would be Riker and or Troy.
Can you imagine if it was Riker and Picard's like, you seem to think about sex all the time.
Yeah.
He's like,
Riker's like, you don't? What are you thinking about, a book? Well, yes.
yes, I happen to miss my copy of Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Yeah, but it also makes you think, like, what if it was, say, like Picard and Worf that were joined at the mine? That would be even more awkward, where it would just feel like, okay, hey, Worf, yeah, boy, you sure like killing things. You're kind of creepy, and like Worf is like, you are too fragile. I do not like all of your emotions floating around in my head.
Exactly.
It'd be pretty fun. But obviously, we know why Beverly was chosen for this mission, for the writing. And
That's good.
I loved it.
No, I thought it was. Look, this is the first time I think I can remember seeing this writer on the credits. So I felt like it did have an original flavor to it that some of the other episodes didn't have. This guy was credited solely with the Nicholas Sagan, and I don't know if he's been doing other episodes or not, but he definitely had his own flavor. It felt like it's It just felt like differently than some of the other episodes that we've seen.
But he
Because it
had
does,
to know a lot about Star Trek because he was able to kind of capture, their characters and their voices. Boy, whoa, he was only what 30 when he wrote this. Kind of a youngster back then. Let's see. So he wrote 2 episodes of Next Generation. This one was his first, and his second one is episode 22 of season 7, Bloodlines. And he then went on to write in 25 episodes of Voyager. So basically, he looks like he was in the writer's room for season 5, all of season 5 of Voyager. Just one full season, writer's room, and that was it. Don't know what happened before or after, but that was his Star Trek writing career.
well, he was a good writer, I can say, and that's obvious to me in some of the moments where I was writing down his dialogue. Uh, for example, um, I like the bit where Picard she says, I don't know. It could be 2 ways. It could either be that way or this way. And he looks over and he says, "Oh, it's that way." And she's like, "You don't even really know, do you? You're just guessing, and you're just pretending like you know." And he's like, "Well, sometimes captains must give the appearance of confidence." So
Yeah.
he gives that whole, and I love that because it was a moment of humility, but it was also well explained by Picard in that moment. Like he got busted, he got caught, right? He got caught bullshitting for a second, right? But his explanation for the bullshit was, look, I have to instill confidence in my team, and I can't act like I don't know which way to go. I don't know. What do you want
Right.
from me?
That's definitely one of the things that I remember from watching it a long time ago. There are a few things. That was definitely one of the things that stood out was him
Yeah.
pretending to know because he's like, if nobody knows the answer, then we have to move forward confidently in whatever it is.
Yes.
And you can't move
Yes.
forward confidently if you're like, I guess we could do this way, I don't know. But, there's negatives to that as well, because if he says, well, I'm not sure, but maybe this one, then that empowers somebody that maybe is more sure to say, actually, I really think it's this one. But if Picard or anybody acts 100% certain it's this way, then that kind of stifles a suggestion that may come up. But anyway, it was still a good lesson to be learned. And I remember when I first saw that, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Good job, Picard.
Yeah, because you want your leaders to sound confident, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want them to say, "Yeah, we're going to go in there, we're going to kick their ass, and we're going to get it done." You don't want them saying, "Look, I don't know, we'll see what happens, and hopefully, maybe." You
Well,
know?
Gandalf once chose a path by saying they're like, "What do you remember which direction to go in the cave?" And he's like, "Let me think. I don't remember. I don't remember if it was left or right." And they're like, "Okay." So he sits and he's thinking and he's smoking his pipe for like half a day, and then finally goes, "Ah, it's this way." And like, "Did you remember?" He's like, "No, but the air smells less foul in that direction." So, okay. Would have just been better if you said, "Yes, I remember it's this way." But
Exactly. Uh, and then there was also another moment there I thought was really cute when Dr. Crusher says, "Oh no, this is what Picard says." He says, "I'm beginning to realize you always have some acerbic remark on the tip of your tongue." So
ain't
she
that
always
true?
has like, she always has like some comeback, some little smart, sassy comeback to say to him. And
And what's funny is I heard that word used 20, 25 years ago when I watched the episode. I
yeah,
heard it again today,
yeah.
and not once in between the two. That word, acerbic. I've never heard that word. Nobody ever uses that word. I don't think I've ever heard it outside of that episode and you just mentioning it in this review.
I know. It was one of those obscure words. I had to go back and listen to it again. I thought he said absurd, and then I said, I don't think it was absurd. It was acerbic, right?
Acerbic. Yeah, you said it right the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to rewind
It says a harsh, biting, or critical tone, or a sour, bitter taste, which we could have just guessed based on the context. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, they use it as a preservative too, acerbic acid.
Oh, just in time for our break, everybody. Can you believe it? We're going
Yay!
to get up into
Boom.
this episode, and you are going to hear more acerbic
That's-
remarks from
oh,
both of us. We'll be right back on the seventh rule.
no more.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
Here are the trivioids of the week. The Kess want associate membership in the Federation. Nurse Ogawa has been late 3 times this week. Earth's world government formed in 2150. The Kess and the Prit have not communicated in almost a century. The Prit's weapons pose no threat to the Enterprise. I love that line by Worf. Beverly's grandmother used to make vegetable soup with peas and carrots. There are times when it is necessary for a captain to give the appearance of confidence. Beverly Crusher always seems to have some acerbic remark at the tip of her tongue, and a man can't be held responsible for what his mind does when he's asleep. Sirach, do you think that's true? Do you think that a man cannot be held responsible for what his mind does when he's asleep?
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it.
I'm
What do you want?
asleep.
I think there's people that have gotten away with as a legal defense for sleepwalking and murdering somebody. Like if you can actually prove that you were or have this ability or tendency to sleepwalk,
That's pretty crazy.
I think people have gotten away with doing stuff in their sleep and proving that it was done in their sleep. And they had no idea that that was happening. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Check in the comments, but I think sleepwalking or sleep in itself is a defense for non-cognizant action.
Mm-hmm. So they could do crazy things in their sleep and get off. All right. Good to know. I don't have that tendency. I've never sleepwalked, so I won't be able to use that defense myself. But
Yeah.
that's really interesting to know. All right. So,
Well, I have, in my defense, slept walked to the bathroom and peed outside of the toilet slightly.
and ate a ham sandwich.
Yeah, and then went right back to sleep.
I don't think we saw Geordi. Is this 2 weeks in a row with no Geordi?
Yeah. I mean, he might have been doing something. I wonder what he was doing.
That's
around
what I'm
this time,
thinking.
because, yeah,
If they
he was
miss
probably doing
more than a
something,
couple
yeah.
episodes, something's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably was working on another project at this
Yep.
time. But it's also season 7. I remember it being a little bit more lenient, I would say, during the 7th season when we knew that it was the last season. It was kind of like senior year. After you take
Senioritis.
over. Yeah, you get that senior stuff. I had the name for this episode. I was calling it Kesper Housewives.
Ah! That's funny. No, I just looked it up, and the reason LeVar Burton was not in episode 7 or 8 is simply because the scripts did not require his character. Okay. So they were just, we call this in sports, Sirach, you know what they call it in sports, load management. That's what it was. He was just taking the back end of a back-to-back off, and they're like, all right, like you were saying, it's season 7, senioritis. Yeah. This isn't an integral Geordi episode. Why don't we write out these 2 scenes that you're in, or one scene where you say technobabble and just give you the week off, right? That's probably what sounds like what that was like.
Yeah, and like I said, this was also a relationship episode. This was a good, this was long overdue, by the way.
Totally.
I mean, Picard and Crusher, we've seen them kind of hook up. Actually, the last time they hooked up was in a cave. Wasn't it in a cave that they fell in and she broke her ankle, or was that?
So that's what I was remembering, and I put that in my notes too. I put, is this the first time we've seen just the two of them together off the ship since Arsenal of Freedom in the first season, when Tasha Yar and Data are like shooting at those AI drones flying around,
Yeah.
and Picard and Beverly fall into a pit. She's got a broken
Yes.
arm, and she's like, "No, you're going to have to use this root on me," or whatever like that.
Yes.
And then we're like, "Ooh, what's going on with these two?" And then cut to 6 years later, they have their
Yeah.
next scene.
Yeah. So it's been that long.
Yes.
And they were in a cave then.
Yeah.
They were in a cave then. And I was like,
Picard
what
loves
is
caves, man. He's
yeah.
a caveman.
He's the caveman. He only scores in caves. It's crazy. This guy, you got to watch him.
I like the
But
lower light, he says.
yeah, he likes that
The dim
the
lighting.
candle lights. Yes, he did say he loves a good firelight. They both said that. But who else was fantastic in this episode was Jonathan Frakes himself. He had moments that I thought were
Yeah.
just made me laugh, made me enjoy his performance. For example, when he says, "Fine, make sure you take all of this junk with you."
And we knew that was coming. When the guy says we're leaving, and I didn't remember that part, but the first thing I thought was when Riker said fine, I was like, he's going to say, take your shit with, clean this junk. And he didn't disappoint. He said exactly what we expected him to say.
I was so proud of him. Because the way he looked around, like, what the hell? They got a command center set up in my.
Oh my God.
I gave him the quarters, and they got a command center set up here, like all kind of little balls and displays. He was sitting in there like he was a captain, sitting in the captain's chair. He's like, "You may enter." And he's like, "What the hell's going on in here?"
I know. So, actually, along those lines, this was a really good episode that kind of touched on that stuff, the diplomatic side, where they're like, oh, these guys are so bad, they're so terrible. But come to find out that they're not. Maybe they're not. It's not so one-sided. It's like they're coming in to see the Kess, and the Kess are like, oh, the Prit are the worst thing in the whole world. You don't want anything to do with them. But then they're like, you guys are just as bad. You guys, and that kind of, goes to remind us all that, like, if you're always just listening to one person's story about another or one side of a story, then, like if one friend says, and then she did this, and you're like, really? You didn't do anything to? No, she just came at me for no reason. Why don't you find out if that's actually true? Because there's always two sides to every story. So I thought it was really cool that it would have been too easy for them to say, oh, it turns out that the Prit are really the good guys and they're really the bad guys or whatever. Nope, they're just like, no, they both suck. They're both dumb.
Yeah, and I guess that leads us into some of what the qualifiers are to be part of the Federation. Like, what are the standards that they look for planets that join, or groups, alien races that join the Federation? What are their criteria? And I guess they're looking for certain things about humanity, obviously a technological advancement level of some sort. But they basically want to see that you have an IQ met. You have met a quotient of some kind when it comes to intelligence, when it comes to reason, when it comes to perspective on dealing with others.
And also speaking with one voice. They want that one world government. They're like, that's why they're saying it's unusual for us to be considering a group when they haven't fully united. What they want is a united planet. And then they want to talk with that united planet. I'm like, that sounds like a high bar. Maybe in a few hundred years it won't be. But can you imagine, like, every single country on the planet all uniting and being in agreement? Whew.
Yeah, and that leads to a bigger argument that I thought was going to be had in this episode, and that can actually be had extrapolated from the episode. And that was where she was talking about well, what if Australia didn't join in 2150? She come up with that.
Fucking Australia every time. Yeah, piss me
It's
off.
either them or the Canadians. No,
Barf.
no, we love them.
Yeah.
But the rationale was something that you can kind of follow down a logic train, right? Okay, so back to your thing about singularity and a unified kind of government or front, right? Um, that's not really even how a democracy technically works in general. We have a majority, but we don't have a total consensus on any one particular thing,
Totally.
right? So, even in this hypothetical that she's bringing up, uh, I'm sure that even in 2150, when the Federation was created or whatever, there was somebody on the planet
Yeah.
that was like, like,
It was
no,
probably
screw
some
those
Dutch
guys.
guy on a bicycle.
It's somebody, some guy
We're
was like,
just
screw
pissing
that.
everybody off.
Yeah, I don't want to sign up for the program. I'm sure there had to have
Yeah,
been somebody. I mean, there are groups, not to pick on any particular group, but there are groups that believe that they should not adhere to a more technology. They stay rooted in a level of technology that was period relative to the period that they want to stay in. For example, the Amish, who don't use certain modern technology.
hmm
I can't see them saying, "Yeah, sign up for the space program," because they're not for that. That's not their,
Or what about
culture.
I think, what is it called? Birthday Island? Am I remembering that weird? Birthday Island. No, Sentinel Island. What's Birthday Island? That's another thing. Sentinel Island, I think it's off the coast of India, and it's got these indigenous people. It's like a tribe, and every time anybody's ever tried to come to them, say hello, do whatever, share the word of baby Jesus or colonize or whatever what it was, they got attacked. These
Yeah,
Sentinel Island people are like, nope, not having it. They don't want to make friends. They don't want to talk to you. They
yeah,
see they're like, what are these monsters coming at me? And they kill them. And so now they've basically made it a rule to where they're going to leave them alone forever and never bug them. So we'll never have a world democracy because nobody's going to come and say, look, shh, I know you think I'm the devil showing up and you don't know why other people are coming here, but we just need your vote real quick. So can you just sign here that says you'd like to join a bunch of aliens, please? Kind of a long-winded thing, but
exactly,
it's never going to
exactly,
get there. Yeah.
exactly. And so, again, how far do you carry out the idea of consensus? How long do you follow that thought out? Because you're not going to get 100% consensus on anything. It's just there's different cultures, there's different belief systems, there's people who don't even want to participate. Uh, so, um, but what you will get is perhaps a majority view on how an outlook of the population of the total. So if it's 7 billion people and 6.5 billion think this way, then that's pretty much as close as you're gonna get.
That's good enough.
Good enough. But but yeah, so that's kind of the moral argument that was brought up, which made me think that
hmm
Dr. Crusher is a perfect complement for somebody like Picard
They were great
because
together. Yeah.
he's an intellect. He wants to have conversations that are in depth. He wants to go beyond the scope, and she likes to have these kinds of conversations as well. She's talking about the theoretical formation of the Federation in 2150 and of Australia. These are the kinds of conversations and debates that engage Picard's mind, and so I think they make a good combination if she would just stop making Vulcan breakfasts.
And I had this thought towards the end where I was like, even with them talking, like watching Star Trek makes you feel smart because you're sitting there with Bev and Gene Luck, and he's going, like you're saying, oh, it seems this artifact is it, more tea, whatever like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a way, Star Trek has this way of making every breakfast, every tea time, every dinner, including when Cisco cooks, just feel like the best thing in the world. Like when we're watching even Beverly and Picard just shooting the shit and eating food that they don't really care for, we're still watching this going, oh man, this would be so cool. This would be such a nice way to spend an evening or a breakfast or whatever. They just have this way of making something look like the perfect evening, you know?
Yeah, there was a lot of moments like that. For example, here they are, lost and stranded. They're fighting for their life. They're looking for the border, and they're out in some jungle in the fireplace. And I'm thinking, that's so cozy.
Yeah.
Like they're over there by a campfire. At
They're
a
not even trying
campsite.
to hide. Like, you're not
No.
doing a very good job of hiding. You're walking out in the open, you're lighting a fire, you're just napping. Picard went and napped right next to her, by the way. She goes and walks across the other side of the fire, lies down. He's like, oh, boy, I'm tired too. And he goes right freaking next to her. Obviously, that was just for blocking. But I thought that Jonathan Frakes did a phenomenal job of directing.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. Yeah, and acting, because he had those great reactions. Of course, when Picard's like, oh, that's so funny. Indeed, he does. And Riker's like, huh? What?
Did I miss something?
Yeah. Hey, it's already time for the home run of the episode, if you can believe that. Good gravy. This thing passed by because I spent too much time talking about Sentinel Island. Here comes the home run of today's episode.
I believe that Gates McFadden was the home run hitter in this episode. I loved her performance. I thought she was just magical and beautiful, and just held herself in so many beautiful ways. Love the facial expressions. Love the way she was realizing the way that Picard felt about her. The way she expressed that in her facial expressions, like, oh, I had no idea. Like, you can see her processing all of this, and I thought she did a fantastic job. So, there's other people that are very qualified to get it, but including the writer. But I will say Gates McFadden, because I really get to see her just shine like this. I was happy to see it.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one for me because I feel like Jonathan Frakes really, really took it home. And I feel like he got some really good performances out of them. But based on everything you've said in the past and other people have echoed, it's really the actors. The directors on these kind of shows are not going to be like spending a ton of time working with the actors and telling them what their character's feeling right now. They're just like, hey, we are on the clock. If you don't have your material down, that's on you. I'm not going to hold your hand. If you have a question, let me know. Otherwise, action. And we've also come to see Jonathan Frakes do a really, really, really good job constantly as a director. So I'm already kind of grading him on a curve, like I'm kind of used to him.
I'm grading him by his own standard now because he's just set a high bar.
Whereas Gates hasn't been given as many opportunities to shine. She got an opportunity to shine in this one, and I felt like she really hit that home run. She really, like you said, the reactions, the realizations, even when she wasn't talking, when Picard's talking, we're watching her eyes. I'm even going back and rewinding to watch the reaction that she as an actress deliberately put out there for us to catch subtly, because she knows we're going to be looking for it. How's she acting? Is she sad? Is she happy? What, is she relieved? What's going on? And she gives it to us. She gives us what we're looking for. So yes, home run of the episode to Gates McFadden. Also, here's some other people that have excellent reactions. Their names are Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom TJ, Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Anil O, Palat Jobal Sarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, it's her birthday, D. Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manasfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Cassandra G., Mark Zutkoff, Chris Garris, Linda Pages, Steve Case, Stephen Monk, Jonathan Capps, and of course, Jason M. Oken, quite frankly.
Okay.
All right, everybody. We're going to hit the free-for-all up next. We will be right back on The Seventh Rule.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton. It is time for the free-for-all. Can you believe it? With Melissa Longo.
Hi.
Jason M. Oken is here, quite frankly.
Hello, everybody.
Faith has got her birthday going on, so we're having a lot of fun with that. Allison Leachhide, IDIC. She got that from Melissa. Chris Garris is here. He's feeling good.
Hello, everybody.
Carrie Schwentz got an IDIC shirt too. Awesome. And a fire behind her. Mark Zutkoff, 3 choice pictures. And Chris McGee. Oh, Darmok and Gillette. I think that's shot in the same spot. Maybe that's on purpose. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
8.2.
Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know?
7-8.
7-6.
7-1.
All right. You guys are all closer than I was. I guess like 8.5. It's a 7.5. Rude. I thought this was actually a really good episode. So you guys get out there and make your numbers count. Non-appearance mentioned, we had Nurse Ogawa, right? Did we have anybody else?
And Jack Crusher.
Oh, and Wes Crusher. That's right. I got those.
Oh,
yeah.
and Wes Crusher.
Yeah.
Very nice. And some kinds of or some sorts of Chris McGee.
I heard a couple of them almost back to back. First of all, Picard, stating the obvious, says, "We're in some kind of prison cell." And then shortly afterward, when Crusher tells him about the implant she finds on his neck, says, "Is it some kind of coercive device?"
Yep. All right. Melissa Longo, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you thought of this excellent episode?
I enjoyed it immensely, actually. And for the very specific reason of these two faces right here. These two cutie pies right here. I am a romantic. I am not shy about saying such. And I loved the scenes between Beverly and Picard throughout this entire episode. I enjoy the intimate conversations that they had with each other. I enjoyed the look at their partnership and why they functioned so well as a team. I enjoyed their humor with each other, and I enjoyed them finally admitting their feelings for each other. But I will say that the way this episode ended made me very sad, because it revealed that it's Beverly who's always running away from Picard, not the other way around. She's the one who puts the brakes on. She's the one who puts the brakes on it during Picard and doesn't tell him about his son. She's always running away from him, and I don't know why. I don't know why she's so scared to explore this relationship with Picard. Because he's such a good man. He's there. I get his guilt falling in love with his best friend's wife, but he never acted on it while he was alive. So, and he's been a perfect gentleman up to this point with regards to Beverly. And so his guilt, I think he needs to let that go. And I think that Jack Crusher would be happy for his best friend and his wife to find this connection, because he's not there, and he knows that Picard is a good person, And why wouldn't he want Beverly to be with a good person? So I don't know. I feel like don't let fear get in your way, folks. If you love somebody and you know that they love you, go for it. Life's too short.
Especially if you're in a cave, which Picard always.
Right? Another one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, nice shirt. Thank you very much, Melissa Longo. All right, Jason M. Oken, is that 19 times that Picard's gotten lucky in a cave or what?
Yeah, everybody's a cave dweller in Star Trek. That's kind of a cliche. It looks like all the races live in caves, and caves are inevitable. So we have it here, and here we have it with gas, and I'm not going to get into that because they do smell a lot of it. We do get something that's really fast-paced and character-driven, which is kind of a very nice combination. And frankly, if you look at or compare it to last week's somewhat dreary and draggy Dark Page, this moves along really, really fast. I think overall, this is probably the most adult and mature exploration of the Picard-Crusher relationship, probably of all of Next Gen. And it did come a long way in 7 years. If you look at the first sort of inklings of it in The Naked Now, those sort of weird, odd verbal cues. From there was obviously a lot of things scattered throughout the seasons, but here I think it really is done in a mature way. It's handled with nuance and realism. It doesn't really feel contrived. There's some honesty, vulnerability, some hesitation. Maybe some bonds are deeper when certain things are left unspoken. And I think the payoff here and the whole situation feels earned. It's even if it's somewhat bittersweet at the end. It's something that probably wouldn't have worked in earlier seasons. You just have to sort of build up to it. And I think another thing that was done well here is sort of this whole idea of telepathy. I think it's done in a kind of subtle and convincing way. It's not melodramatic. You don't have ESP, some intrusive, overwhelming psychological message. Just some stray thoughts and buried feelings, memories sort of leak out slowly in an authentic and uncomfortable way, which is probably the way it would be in real life. It's not really a plot gimmick. It really lets us see what the characters are thinking. So I think from that point of view, it's also an advantage. I think Frakes did a good job directing this for sure. Again, everything moves really, really fast, and once you go on location, things do expand. He does have sort of these longer shots, and even though they keep walking around, Bronson Canyon back and forth, and if you know the area, they really kind of walk around the same place over and over again. Still, I mean, it does give you a little bit of scope. I'm not going to get back in to the caves and all that stuff, but yeah, it looks good. I think, at the core of it all, I think, is Patrick Stewart's and Gates' performance. I think it's wonderful. It's they really sink their teeth into the material and without, give this realistic, layered and subtle performance without being over the top or chewing scenery or anything like that. I think they sort of carry the emotional core of this, and they the characters feel lived in. Again, it kind of goes back to the payoff after so many years. I mean, take, I guess the B plot, if you will, on the ship. I think, Michael Dorn maximizes his time as Worf with his reactions. I mean, that's always been his thing, and I think he does it really well. So that works, on that level. I'll have some more thoughts on the B plot. I'll save that for later. But overall, I think the episode is thoughtful, watchable, and rewatchable, which for me is sort of key here. I think it's a good addition to the season.
I had a feeling you might. Thank you very much, Jason M. Oken. All right. Faith is hiding out, but we're going over to Allison Leach Hyde. Did you love this episode as well? Are we wrong? Okay.
Yes. This is one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. And it is because their performance together, Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden, are fabulous together. And you get to see their friendship and that it is something deeper on both sides, though they choose to not deal with it right now. We know it's coming. So it's nice to see it coming. And because we haven't really seen anything since the weird everyone's too hot and sweaty and The Naked Now. So it's nice to have something a little bit more adult happening. And I have to say, this is one of these Star Trek episodes that gave me a nightmare. Like the idea of my husband and I being telepathically connected is terrifying to me. So, I'm like, nope, some things, especially because I too, like Beverly, are a little acerbic, and little quips pop up in my mind. I'm like, no one needs to hear that. And I'm glad no one does. So biggest fear right there is to be telepathically linked to someone and not being able to control what they hear that's popping up in my brain. So yes, love it. I think Frakes did a wonderful job directing. I also thought he did a great job acting in this one too. Highly enjoy the scene at the end behind Melissa right now of where he's just completely confused, like I've missed something. Great facial expressions. I thought he dealt really well with the Kess and the Pret. Kesprit, yeah. Just dealing with their complete insanity of being completely paranoid. So yeah, kudos to Riker in handling that situation. And I personally went, oh, I bet they wish O'Brien was here today while watching the episode when we lost the captain and the doctor in a transporter issue. So I'm like, oh, would that have happened if O'Brien was here? Probably not, because he's the most important man in Starfleet history. So I will leave it there.
Wow, great stuff. That would be a really good things left unsaid thing for our next segment, which is if anybody could read your mind, what would be the horrible things that they would find out? So that's on Things Left Unsaid, everybody. You got to be a patron. We're going to say our deepest, darkest secrets. Faith, what'd you think of this episode? Did you love it?
Of course. This is actually one of the, I think, most memorable 7th season episodes for me. It's just one that stands out as, having watched it the first time. I have that same fear, Allison, that I wouldn't want everybody to hear everything, but I would actually like to have that, sort of feeling of what does my husband feel for me and let him feel. I do think that part of relationships would be cool to actually know where you stand with someone without a doubt. And that's where I feel like the end of this episode kind of fell short, because once you know that, like, why would you not take the risk? Because it's not really a risk at that point. But I do think, and I mean, you guys can argue with me and Things Left Unsaid, but you know how during COVID we were wearing the mask, and I don't know if non-teachers had this problem, but we make your stupid faces a lot behind those masks. And when we came back to school and had to stop wearing the masks, we had to relearn how not to make those faces quite so often. See, Chris is nodding. Chris knows. I think if this was a real thing, we would learn not to have those thoughts quite so loudly all the time, because it would be socially inappropriate. So, I mean, I'm on board. If this was a thing we could turn on and off, let's try it for a while. I want to know. I want to know that people really love me as much as they say they do. So, yeah. No. Sirac says no.
Oh, Gary.
Faith says, I want to know.
Maybe that's coming
what
from me,
you're
and
thinking.
I try to live as genuinely as possible. When I say I love you, I mean it from the depths of my soul.
No.
So I love you guys.
We love you too, and happy birthday, Faith. Oh my God.
Yes.
I definitely did that at the gym once. I forgot that the mask mandate had ended, and I did like a to somebody, and I was like, oh shit, I'm not wearing a mask. They totally just saw me like react like that. I'm such a monster. Chris Garris, you're not a monster. You're a great guy. What did you think of this episode? Did you love it? Uh-oh.
I like it. I don't love it per se. And I think part of my problem with it is that this was what let's see here. We had already, this is another of the will they or won't they between Picard and Crusher. And, that started with the Naked Now, then once again in Allegiance, and then Remember Me. And then they bring it up one more time at the end of this season. And then they finally seal the deal, sort of, in Picard. And then, so that is just for whatever, that part kind of loses it with me. But, what I did like about the fact is that we actually do learn that Picard actually really does love Beverly. Like, hands down, no questions asked. He's always had feelings for her, and he admits that. They finally actually, admit that they actually had feelings for each other. And, but what I have to give him so much respect, because even though he loved her, that was his best friend's, girlfriend, soon to be wife, and he did not pursue her. So, big time, thumbs up there, because there's probably other people on the Enterprise that would have been like, I'm good. I'll chance it. Maybe like Riker. But, I just, so that's where it kind of lost me on all that stuff. But, I do think, to answer some of the other questions about why Dr. Crusher, has always kind of pushed him away in reason, and I think she really brings that up pretty good in Picard, is that trouble always tends to follow Jean-Luc Picard. He's getting taken over by probes. Q bugs the crap out of him all the time. And so, and then I think, I wonder if in some way she even might hold a little, I don't know if grudge is the right word, but for her kind of losing Wes as well throughout the series earlier when he became a traveler. And so I can see that's why she was fearful of ever introducing him to their future son, Jack. So now, does it make it right for her to, make that decision for them? No, not really. But, I have to give her some grace that she's like, she's just afraid and she doesn't want to lose another son. So on that aspect of it, so I can see why she's like, I like you, but trouble follows you, dude. I just kind of want to stay away. We'll keep it at arm's length. And one fun fact I want to add to this episode is the shirt right there, whatever, that Picard is wearing actually shows up once again in the Voyager episode Prime Factors with Garrett. He's actually wearing that shirt, and there's a funny story behind that, is that when Bob Blackman, because one thing Garrett always had was he didn't want to have be culturally insensitive, or like, he's the Asian guy. And so when Bob came up to say, hey, here's a shirt we're gonna wear, are you cool with it? And he looked at it, he's like, okay, that's fine. And then he told him, oh, and FYI, Patrick Stewart wore it. And after that, he was like, oh, I'll wear this shirt however you want me to wear it at that point in time. So that's just a little side note on, the costume, how they actually do reshare it. But overall, it's not a bad episode. It's just, it's not one of my, go-to episodes.
Maybe a go 3-1, though. Thank you very much, Chris Garris. Great stuff, as always. All right. Carrie Schwent is the crafty bear. She says, hey, IDIC, what'd you think of this one?
I very much enjoyed it. I didn't really have much of a memory of it, but it's a particular favorite of the husband's. So he was very excited for me to watch it. And doing a little bit of research on it, there's a fun sort of, it's a small world sort of series of connections with the episode. It's written by Carl Sagan's son, and the gentleman that played the Kess delegate has a role in the movie version of Contact, which is based on the book that Carl Sagan wrote. So kind of a neat little full circle. It's a small world sort of connections, which I very much enjoyed. And also that same actor is also in near the end of Sister Act 2, which it's a small role, but he's kind of adorable in it. And I'm definitely on Picard and Riker's side when it comes to the Kesperit. Neither side really had any business being part of the Federation, probably anytime soon. The dude clearly lied to them when he said, "Oh, we haven't had contact with them in 100 years." If he's got operatives on the other side, there's been some communication there. But here we go. I wrote mine. Yeah. But it is a very interesting episode and getting into the very deep stuff with Beverly and Jean-Luc, especially around the fire. And I love me a good campfire. I would sit by more of them if there weren't the potential for many bugs involved. I don't do bugs, but I love watching campfires. I love smelling campfires, and if I could have one that was bug free, yay! Maybe someday I'll have a fireplace. But in any case, but yeah, they definitely needed to have the hard talk, the heart to heart, because sometimes you just do. And the scene at the end is just it's heartbreaking. Although I kind of wish we'd have gotten more of Beverly's side of why she made her decision, because honestly, like Bev, mine and Eric's situation is vastly different, but I do know what it's like about finding out about feelings, but choosing to stay friends rather than go down that road. Although we did eventually go down that road, but many years later. So it did work out eventually for us. Sad that it didn't work out the way it could have with Jean-Luc and Beverly, but I do respect Beverly's decision, although there's like that twitch as she's starting down the hallway, like she stops for like half a second, has that, I better keep going. And something else about that scene, they both looked fantastic. I love Jean-Luc in that outfit. Beverly has never looked more beautiful. I love her hair like that. I wish she had her hair like that all the time. And the dress, that skirt, it was just very super cute. I did very much enjoy the inside jokes with each other when they were reacting to each other's thoughts. I really want to know what Jean-Luc was thinking to have Beverly go, "Wait, what did you say?" And him responding, "Oh, just trying to make sure you were still listening." I really want to know what he said to her, because I bet it was probably funny. But yes, very much loved the episode and decided the limerick for the episode had to be from Beverly's POV, so I'll finish up there. On paper, the sharing of minds sounds nice. To see through the mask some use as a vice. At last the truth is laid bare. Both of us more than just care. But our friendship will have to suffice.
Yeah, sadly. Thanks very much, Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear. Mark Zutkoff, you were so glad they didn't end up together. What did you think of the rest of the episode, though?
Well, the only things I remembered from this episode were coffee and croissant and the telepathic link between Picard and Crusher. On rewatch, I remembered why. The people on Kesprit 3 are quite unlikable. I do like how Beverly Crusher knows her stuff when she and Picard converse at breakfast about the political situation on Kesprit 3. I also agree with Allison that Riker has a substantial part in an episode which Jonathan Frakes directed, and he plays Riker with his usual calm and reserve. Just kidding! Riker barely keeps his temper and actually loses it a few times, though I hardly blame him. A line from the song For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield kept going through my head. Paranoia strikes deep. The Kess and the Prit are both suffering from a bad case of it, along with xenophobia, as everyone in the episode pronounces it, from the Prit. It manifests as broad comedy when the Kess ambassador installs a ridiculous amount of equipment in his quarters and has Riker and Worf constantly scanned every time they enter the room. The heart of this episode, of course, is Picard and Crusher sharing their thoughts and acknowledging Jean-Luc's feelings for Beverly. Only took 7 seasons to get here. To be fair, Picard has never been good at expressing his romantic feelings, not to Vash, not to Nella Darren, and not to Beverly. From the very beginning, in the pilot, he's so caught up in the image a starship captain should project to his crew that he pushes any such feelings deep down. The heartbreak is that when he finally does express his feelings, it's Beverly who shuts them down again at the end. While watching Picard Season 3, I theorized that the events of this episode were what led to the conception of Jack Crusher. But not only does the timeline not work well, given 4 movies after this season, but Beverly's attitude would seem to have closed the door. Wonder what opened it again. And it was an interesting end shot with Patrick Stewart almost looking at the camera as he blows out the candles. And my home pun of the episode, Picard was ready to move forward with Beverly, but Crusher didn't cave.
Nice. Thank you very much, Mark Zutkoff. More cave jokes, please. Chris McGee is the Dark Lord. What's up? What'd you think of this one?
I think it's a good episode, even if it ultimately only has one purpose when you get right down to it. Just to reiterate what everyone else has already said, after 7 years of hiding behind propriety, Picard and Crusher now know each other's true feelings. It's the emotional payoff the show has been building toward ever since the encounter at Farpoint. Ryan has done an incredible job keeping this episode secret from Sirach. Every time he keeps mentioning, I wish they would just get together. And I wish I'd been there when he finally saw this episode and shouted at the TV, finally! Of course, they don't actually get together in the end. Beverly acknowledges the feelings, but says she isn't ready. It's realistic and mature, rare for TV at the time, but also the kind of thing that frustrated fans for years. Somewhat subtle thing that I only noticed on my most recent watch of the episode. Worf is suspicious of Morik from the very beginning. We see him looking at Morik with suspicion in the observation lounge. Then there are moments when the camera zooms in on him at the end of a scene with Morik, etc. And I just never noticed that before. I thought it was a nice touch. A few other little observations. Lieutenant J is on the bridge. Funny how Riker always finds a way to get close to her. And I really don't want to read too much into that anyway. I'm glad they kept to the established canon that Dr. Crusher is afraid of heights, which we saw in Chain of Command Part 1. And as mentioned before, the cave opening that Stuart McFadden exited is the famous Bronson's Cave landmark. Among many other appearances, of course, it was the Batcave entrance in the 1966 Batman TV series. And I really like the moment when Crusher calls Picard out on his faking about knowing the right way to go. Reminds me of the age-old trope that men always think they can read a map and know exactly where they're going and will never stop to ask for directions. The memorable quote of the episode that I, of course, had to go with, it was unavoidable, is, of course, coffee and croissant.
Hell yeah. Love it. Thank you very much, Chris McGee, a.k.a. Dark Lord. All right, Jake's final take. Sirach, any final thoughts on coffee and croissant?
Yeah, I got some final thoughts. I like this episode. This was kind of overdue, though. I felt like this episode should have been like 3 seasons ago. This build-up was way too much and way too long and drawn out. And then they don't even really kind of consummate the relationship. And that bothered me because she now knows, she knows he loves her. Like, that's exactly the word she says. Like, why didn't you tell me you love me? It's not like an attraction or a crush or like something fly by night. This is something like love. So I just feel like I was disappointed at the end that they didn't actually kind of at least leave it up to the audience to figure out what had happened. They could have left it open-ended. They're just drinking a glass of wine, having fun, and then we don't know what happens that night. And it would have been a little bit better for me because then I could have had my own headcanon. But so that was my big disappointment. The other thing is, I'm like, would Dr. Crusher come over to Picard's quarters looking that hot, not ready to go ahead and just finalize this deal?
Oh my gosh!
I'm sorry. She was wearing the outfit. She had the little skirt on. She had the leggings. She looked gorgeous. Her hair was done up. And I was just thinking, like, this is not like just casual, let's hang out and have a croissant outfit. This is like, look at me. I am gorgeous. And so, I don't know, just threw me off. It almost feels like she was trying to get back at him for not making the advancements all of these times. So it's like, this is my little miniature get back to you by turning you down when you want it right now. I just didn't think that was the appropriate move for me. I loved it when Riker went off on the delegate and he was like, "Oh, you don't like people coming around? Wait till Starfleet investigates their disappearing captain. You're gonna really like that because we're gonna have tons of ships and detectives, and we're gonna turn over every stone on your planet. You like that? We're gonna talk to everybody." And that was like perfect. Like, duh. Do you really want that? Because we're coming. And I thought that was a good way to, get them to convince them, like, hey, let's not do this. Let's kind of rethink things here. I bet Riker, well, when Picard was talking to Beverly as they were doing their last bit of telepathy, I think Picard was talking about Riker. And I think he was saying something like, I bet you he slept with that Prit girl, that ambassador girl that I saw earlier. Something like that. That's what I'm sure he's ribbing about. But yeah, I just feel like non-communication is such a big thing. It can just lead to these kinds of things where you have two people that kind of feel this kind of way about each other, but neither one of them is kind of acting because they don't communicate well. And, I totally can feel empathy with the subject matter, like with the overall subject of this, which is having feelings for somebody that may be off limits to you and you're trying to bury those feelings. So that makes sense. I mean, that seems like a real thing. These kinds of scenarios happen in different ways, they play out so many different ways, where you'll, think about it could have been, should have been, would have been. Anyways, I liked the episode. I thought Jonathan Frakes did a very good job with the directing. The acting was great between Picard and Crusher. I love their romance together. I love them being, just like her realizing, she was like, oh, wait a minute. And the expression on her face when she was realizing all of this stuff was excellent. And Picard also kind of owning up to stuff and being coy and like he getting busted on, lying about which way to go and certain things. He had to show a level of humility, and I thought he did in this episode. So I really enjoyed that as well. But yeah, I enjoyed this episode. It was fantastic. I really liked it.
All right. So everybody loved it except for like a couple naysayers. I thought it was great. Thank you very much to Chris Garris, Chris McGee, Mark Zutkoff, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Allison Leach Hyde, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo, for myself, Sirach, Melissa, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. Give this episode a second chance. You'll be glad you did, probably. We'll see you on Things Left Unsaid. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the seventh rule.